that's where advocacy, for your profession comes into play. So here in Arkansas, we've been pretty strong with that. And we've got a lot of the news media and the local legislators to pay attention to that thing, as well as your local community leaders. And, we've really done a good job in Arkansas in educating the public and the major players in these areas to see, this is an important issue and we're not being properly reimbursed. So it's good to have someone extra on your side. So I think we've done pretty well in Arkansas about that. And it's good to see that kind of spreading throughout the nation as well now.
Yeah, there's a couple states that I think are really influential or definitely I don't know if it's just that those states are the squeaky wheel or if those states are really forward thinking and have, more resources allocated for advocacy. But, you think of North Carolina, you think of Arkansas, why are these universal problems only gaining traction, it seems, in some of those states?
Well, I think it all goes back to, the way the leaders in those states have started from the very beginning. And also you'll find a lot of the states that are really getting a lot of traction are those that still have a lot of the independent pharmacies around. So, you see them really pushing in their communities because, that's part of the tax base. That's part of, the people supporting your local teams and, events around your communities. And so once those independent pharmacies and pharmacy owners, make themselves a part of the community, not only in their local communities, but in their counties and the state, you see that kind of grab hold a little easier because it's a little easier for when the decision makers are your own customers and patients. It's a little easier, for you to kind of network and get your ideas out there and help them advocate on your behalf. So I think that's part of where your advocacy comes from in those states is just from having a lot of the independent pharmacies and then a strong pharmacy association that advocates on your behalf. And I know North Carolina, Arkansas, a lot of these states that are like that is where you see a lot of these groundswell of legislative activities happen.
Yeah. I mean, how much of that is just luck of the draw if you just happen to have a legislator who understands the healthcare landscape and wants to improve that versus, somebody who's maybe not as receptive or hasn't really kind of it's really a lot to take in. If you're not familiar with it, it can really kind of be and is by design, I guess, very convoluted.
It is. And I mean, I won't lie to you. It takes years of doing that. I know when I graduated from pharmacy school in 2002, shortly after that, I started getting involved in our state pharmacy association and then served on the board of directors for a number of years. So I saw firsthand it took from then when we first started, trying to advocate on some issues important to pharmacy, whether it be provider status and paying for services, as well as PBM reforms and legislation to deal with, the abusive practices of PBMs and insurance middlemen. You've seen that take a number of years for us to just keep belaboring that point home, and then finally it takes hold. And I think you've seen that in the last few years because it started to affect people, especially, I think of the example of the workforce shortages. You see that happen a lot. So patients are kind of burdened by that if they're forced into these plans to use certain preferred networks or certain pharmacies like chains, but then they go there and suddenly those pharmacies are understaffed and it's going to take, hours to days to get their prescriptions filled. And we even had some in our local community that just closed out of the blue. And so that kind of, brings it home then to those patients, and they're like, hey, maybe we need to start doing something. And then the legislators start saying, well, yeah, there is an issue. What you've been telling us all these years about low reimbursements and, not being able to sustain, local pharmacies, that affects people, especially you see after COVID when a lot of the pharmacies just couldn't properly service, a lot of the chain pharmacies couldn't properly service their communities. And then thankfully, there were still a lot of independent pharmacies here, that those patients could go to. And they're like, we really need these guys around. They're providing the innovative services that we need, and they're a part of our community. So we need to start helping to make sure that that they survive.
Thanks for listening to this clip from Beyond the Scripts, presented by the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please support our channel by liking, subscribing, and clicking the notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime we post new content. To stay up to date with all of the latest independent pharmacy news and content, follow PioneerRx on your preferred social media platform.